All right, so I've got straight A pluses for 3.5 years now in my studies in engineering, and I've done this while still enjoying time in the gym and with relationships and all of this other stuff, okay? And so if I was to offer one piece of advice to not only improve your studies, but just improve your student life, so it's not just such a, grind and unenjoyable experience, it would be to work hard when you are working, and when you're not working, don't waste this time, okay? Have fun. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. So to start off, I just want to elaborate a little bit more on that idea. I said that when you are working, you should be working hard, right? And when you're not working, you should go and have some fun. And in general, this is just that kind of like work hard, play hard idea, right? There's no point, okay, in doing something in between, because when you're doing something in between, when you're putting half effort into something, that's where a lot of dissatisfaction comes in. And I don't just mean half effort into your work, I mean half effort into your relationships, into whatever you're doing in the moment, whatever you're doing for fun, okay? And so that's where dissatisfaction comes in. That's where these negative emotions come from in university. Everyone says like university life sucks, but it's because a lot of things are done with half effort, okay? And what do I mean by that? Okay, so for example, a lot of students, all right, they put a certain amount of effort into their school, okay? And they're working, and then, they stop working, okay? Because of course you can't work for 8 hours a day. And what do? Okay? What do most people do when they take a break from their studies, okay? They go on their phone. But what is the issue with that? The big issue with that is that when you go on your phone, okay, you sit on it for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, okay? Do you feel good about how that time was spent after? No, of course not, right? Because you were taking time off of your work, okay? So you weren't being productive in the traditional sense, right? You were taking time off your work to do something, okay? And the thing you chose to do wasn't all that fun. It was all right, there's some dopamine hits there, but you were just going on your phone. You were just killing time, okay? You were just taking a break from your work. And you feel bad about that after, not only because it's not good to scroll on social media or all these things, but because you were taking time off of the work to do something that really wasn't that fun. You were really only giving like half effort to the having fun metric, right? If you actually wanted to have fun and energize yourself, you would have gone and maybe called a friend, or you would have like gone and hung out and done something with people, all right? You would have gone outside, you would have spent time with your family, you would have, done something, all right? That would be you giving, full effort to having fun. But you didn't do that, all right? You stopped studying, you got on your phone, and you wasted an hour. And not only did you not do the work, but you didn't have fun either. You were just on your phone, which is like a semi-enjoyable activity. And when you do these semi-enjoyable things, there's just dissatisfaction there. And it goes the other way around too, right? When you do semi-enjoyable things, there's dissatisfaction, but also when you do semi-productive things, there's dissatisfaction there, right? A lot of times as a student, there's big tasks out of you. You got to do this project, you got to do this report, you got to do this assignment, and these are all important things that you need to get done. But because these tasks are bigger, they can be a little bit daunting at times, right? And so sometimes you choose to do an easier task. You choose to check your email. You choose to clean up your notes. You choose to do these other things, right? But realistically, those things that you choose to do, checking the email, cleaning up your notes, whatever it is, right? They're not really you working. They're just you like faking being productive, right? It's something that, can be done, but really is not the most effective use of your time. You're not like, that's not you working to 100% effort. Just like going your phone wasn't you having fun to 100% effort, right? And of course you don't feel good about this work either, because it really wasn't you working. It was just you, doing things in order to feel productive, right? But you weren't being productive, okay? Just like how going on your phone didn't actually like make you have fun. You didn't have fun by going in there. Doing these semi-productive, tasks, these semi-productive things doesn't actually make you feel fulfilled that you got good work done, because it wasn't work. And so that's really what I want to, hit home here, is that when you try to do these in-between things, when you try to do semi-productive work, or you try to do like semi-enjoyable fun things, you're just left dissatisfied, okay? And this dissatisfaction is why so many people have these negative, emotions towards school, because, a lot of people's school is these semi-productive tasks. It's these semi-enjoyable activities. And so, of course, you're going to have that negative emotion towards school. Of course, you're not going to enjoy school. Of course, you're not going to enjoy studying if this is what your studying is, if this is what your student life is. Like, I don't blame you. So what is the solution then? It's just going all in on whatever you're doing. If you're going to work, sit down, okay? Walk in and work. And if you're going to play, go and have fun with your friends. Go and do something, all right? None of this like half, I'm going to like go on my phone now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to like do this. Like, actually spend your time intentionally, okay? Spending time intentionally is how you're left feeling good about how that time was spent, when you go all in on the work, or you go all in on having the fun, okay? None of this in between. And of course, when I say like all in on the work, it doesn't need to be just schoolwork. It could be, anything productive. It could be going to the gym. It could be reading a book. It could be, doing other habits But it shouldn't just be these tasks that you do in order to kind of feel productive, all right? Because these leave you feeling drained because they're not usually that fun. You don't even feel good about finishing them because they weren't important tasks to begin with, and there's just better uses of your time. You could have just sat down and done proper quality work that actually needed to get done, and if you weren't going to do that, well, you could have just gone and had fun. So, this in-between stuff is really what leads to that dissatisfaction, and so be aware of that, all right? The biggest advice that you can offer to anybody is just be intentional, okay? Be intentional with your time, okay? So if you're working, you sit down and you're doing work. If you're playing, you sit down and you have fun, okay? And when you do this in between stuff, when you kind of just do things to pass the time or do things to feel productive, that's where dissatisfaction comes in. That's where, that's why people don't enjoy the school. And so that's the first major point that I wanted to make was, when you're working, work, when you're playing, nothing in between. But quickly before I jump to the next point, I want to just emphasize that it's not only that you'll feel better about the time spent, right? You're not just going to feel better about working because you did proper work, right? You're going to feel better about having fun because you actually had fun. But also when you choose to have, fun, okay? Proper fun, not scrolling on your phone, not, passing the time, watching YouTube, whatever. When you choose to actually go and have fun, to actually energize yourself, go out with your friends, that energizes you. And you take that energy and you'll be that much more, ready, that much more energized to go and actually do the work when it comes time to actually do the work, right? Same thing goes the other way around. If you've sat down and you've worked for 2 hours, all right, now you're going to be ready to go out and hang out with friends and have some fun, okay? Because you haven't had that yet, because you've just been working. Now you got to scratch that social itch. You're going to be ready to go out and actually have full, proper fun. So when you choose one, all right, you're going to be that much more primed to enjoy the other one. Or in the case of choosing the having fun, going out with friends, you're going to be that much more primed to come back and be energized to do the work, okay? So that's what I want you to understand here. Don't go half in to working or playing or whatever it is. Just pick one, okay? When you separate these things, when you go all in on one of them, you just get that much more enjoyment, that much more fulfillment, that much more satisfaction from choosing it. Now, one good, use of this idea of working hard or playing hard is actually having to do with studying with friends, because a lot of people at school study with their friends. But is that something that you should really be doing? Is it really the most effective use of time? Well, if you really look at it in terms of working hard or playing hard, it really isn't, okay? So think about this, all right? Let's say you have 2 hours to spend your time, okay? In scenario 1, you spend those 2 hours studying with a group of friends, okay? And in scenario 2, you spend 1 hour studying alone and then 1 hour going out and having fun with some friends, okay? So these are your 2 scenarios, okay? Now, if we consider scenario 1, where you study with your friends, okay? What happens in this scenario, okay? You're sitting at a table, your friends are talking, so you can't really ever get good quality work done. You're always trying to get back to your work, so you can't actually fully enjoy the discussions with your friends either. And at the end of the 2 hours, you are left with maybe you completed like 1 or 2 assignment problems and you had a few decent conversation with some friends, okay? That's scenario 1. Now, scenario 2, okay, you've gone off and you've worked on your own for 1 hour. And so in that 1 hour, you're working quality, you're working on your own, you put your phone away, there's no distractions, okay? You can probably finish, 4 times the amount of work that you did in that 2 hours of scenario 1. And you can do this because your focus is just so much more there. You're not distracted. You're not like in the state of semi-productivity. You're just there and you're working, okay? And so you get a whole lot of work done and you feel good about that, okay? And then after that, well, now you have an hour to go spend with some friends, okay? And now you don't need to be having these mediocre conversations with friends like they were happening at the desk when you're studying, because you're not trying to like all kind of study together. You are hanging out with your friends. You're giving them your full attention. You're being fully present, okay? Your focus isn't split. And so, of course, you're going to have more fun and enjoying that scenario more. And so you can see how, again, scenario 1, what happened there, okay? Were we working hard? No. Were we playing hard? Also no. And so did we really enjoy that 2 hours that were spent? Not really, right? You'd be kind of drained. You'd be thinking, I could have spent that time better. I could have actually got some proper work done, or I could have done something fun with my friends. Like, that wasn't a good use of time. And this is actually a scenario that I've been in. And that's where I came up with, this thought that, why don't we just split up the work? Why don't we just go and sit down and get good quality work done? And then we can actually get that work done faster so we can enjoy time together after. Because that's what happened in scenario 2, right? We worked hard initially, which allowed us to have a whole hour after to spend how we want, to have some actual proper fun. And so that really just shows the power of just not splitting your focus, because when your focus is split, when you're trying to do multiple things at once, trying to kind of have your conversations with your friends and trying to get that work done, you're left very dissatisfied, right? Because you didn't get good quality conversations with your friends and you didn't get good quality work done. There's no results here, okay? But when you split things up, okay, when you split the work and you split the play and you don't go in between, you just go all in on either of them, you get results, okay? Whether that's like completion of assignments or schoolwork, or the result being, you had a good time with your friends. You actually had fun. Like that's a result. So again, this scenario also just shows us how much importance should be placed on splitting your work and play, okay? When you work hard. When you play, you can play hard, all right? This is the most effective way to actually enjoy your student life, to get the work done, but then to also have that social, backbone in order to stay sustainable during this time, right? Because can you get through, years of university with perfect grades without having any social life? Sure. Is it going to be enjoyable? Definitely not, okay? So you do want those social interactions, but if you try to mix them with like studying and socializing, then you're left with dissatisfaction again, because you didn't get the best of either. You got the worst of either compared to when you split them up and you've put full focus, full effort into each of them individually, okay? So split your work and play. That applies to studying with friends, all right? Study alone. If you somehow have a group of friends who can sit down and get good, proper work done, by all means, go ahead. But most people, I think, if you actually analyzed your group and if you like put a camera on you while you were studying for 1 hour or 2 hours, you'd be like, you'd laugh at it after with how little work actually got done. So that's that. And moving on, I want to talk a little bit more about some implementation, about how you can actually implement this idea of, working hard when you're working and then actually having fun playing or doing whatever it is when you're not working, okay? So I think the easiest way to do this is to just study less and schedule things because, especially during the week, I see a lot of people, they pretty much are studying for a good chunk of the day. And whether or not they're actually studying or just kind of hanging out at the library, eating lunch, the line between that is kind of vague, but spending a lot of time in a studying environment. And if that's truly enjoyable to you, then go ahead, of course, right? But I think a lot of people struggle with this, right? Because they don't get the results in school and they always feel like they don't have enough time to do the things they want to anyways. Like they're torn between hanging out with friends or studying and they can't seem to get enough time to do either of them, right? All this comes from not splitting up your studying and your friends, or your studying and your socializing, whatever it is, right? So the best way to do this is to just, bring back the studying. Force yourself to study in shorter blocks of time. Say, hey, I'm only allowed to have my books open for 2 hours a day, okay? So now once you've got 2 hours of studying done, what are you going to go do? Are you really going to spend the rest of the school day sitting down in the library? Probably not. You're going to find something else to do. You're going to find something else fun to do. You're going to talk to your friends and say, hey, let's only study for these 2 hours and then we're going to go out and do something after, right? Because we have this limit, okay? We can only study for 2 hours or 1 hour a day or whatever it is, okay? And then we need to go and do something else, right? And so when you force this limit, when you say, hey, I'm only allowed to study for this much, then when that time period is up, okay, you close your book, right? You're only allowed to have the book open for 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. You close the book, all right? And now what are you going to do? You're going to go and spend that time intentionally. You're going to go do something that's properly fun so that you can come back and be energized for the next day. And again, that 2 hour, thing is arbitrary. It could be 1 hour, it could be 3 hours, whatever it is, right? It's just to emphasize that point that, if you have a limit, if you study less, if you force yourself to study in blocks, all right? And you say that you cannot touch your work outside of those blocks, well, now you're going to like naturally go and spend that time better, right? You're not going to sit at your phone in the library for 4 hours. Of course not. You're going to go and do something, right? So that's one effective way in order to implement this a little bit better, in order to separate that work and that play so you get better benefits from both of them. And one other way to implement this is just when you're not studying, force yourself to go and do something fun. So, let's say I finish my studying. I studied for 2 hours and I take a quick 15-minute break, go outside, whatever it is, I come back inside, okay? I'm not really feeling like studying right now. Maybe I'm not exactly feeling like getting back to work for another hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is, right? I'm not feeling like it. So what do? Okay? If I'm not going to work, am I going to go and scroll on my phone? No, because again, that's not going to leave me feeling good after. I'm not going to, feel good about how that time was spent. I'm not going to actually have too much fun. So if I'm not going to do that, I have two options, okay? I can get back to work, even though I don't feel like it, right? I'm still capable of sitting down and working, even when I don't feel like it. Or I can go and do something that's proper, like actual fun, okay? And so these are the choices. And so if you force yourself in every situation to make that choice, I'm going to work, even if I don't feel like it, or I'm going to go and have proper fun, all right? That's going to help you split your work and your play, right? Because you're essentially just forcing that, right? Either way, it's a win, right? Either you did something fun, or even though you weren't really feeling like you got work done anyways, okay? But if you choose the in-between, if you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down and go scroll on Instagram for 30 minutes, then maybe then I'll feel like working. Well, what's the benefit there, right? You get less work done and you wasted 30 minutes because you didn't actually enjoy that time. You might as well have just gone and had your fun anyways. And if you weren't going to, well, then it's time to get the work done. So that's another solid way in order to help, split your work and your play to actually get the best of either of them. Okay, so that's it with this video. I just want you to, imagine a life where all your time is spent either in some productive sense, whether that's actual work or going to the gym or doing some productive habits or reading, whatever it is, okay? Or having fun, okay? Imagine that, right? And of course, this is an ideal scenario, but just imagine that. Imagine if you just like cut out 80% of all this in between stuff that never feels good, this answering emails, this, going on your phone, this watching the YouTube, right? None of this stuff actually feels that good. You do it to pass the time, you do it because it's easier than doing the work. But if you're not going to do the work, you might as well go and have the proper fun anyways, right? If you're going to spend 2 hours watching YouTube, why didn't you just go and spend that 2 hours doing something fun, okay? So pick one, all right? Work or have that fun, all right? None of this in between stuff. So I hope this video helps you. I really think it's one of the best things that you can do in order to, improve your student life, all right? This will have you getting better grades because when you work, you'll get proper work done. And it will also be so much more sustainable, so much more fun, enjoyable, because you actually just live a proper life, along that, right? You're working and you have a social life and you're going to the gym and you're doing all these things and it's just fun. It's enjoyable. You get the grades, but you also just enjoy that fulfilling student life. So I hope this video has helped you.